Hey, what's up guys? Ryan Schultz here from E39 Source in San Diego, California. Today, a service and review on this magnificent 1997 E39 528. Really early car. So in this video, we'll kind of go over some of the service that we've provided this customer over the last few months, in addition to some of the early E39 specifics that we've noticed with this car as compared to the facelift cars. And we specialize in the M5 here, so that's of course 2000 and later, and people think of the big E39 facelift as being 2001. Many people don't realize that 1999 represented a pretty major facelift as well, so we'll detail some of those changes that we notice here with this 1997 example. So the basics: 1997 528 sedan. This is a 5-speed manual car with a gray standard interior. We don't have the sport package on this model. We've got wood trim. We do have sunshades, and that's about the extent of the option. We've got low OBC, no parking beepers, no DSP, no xenon headlights, no folding seats, but it does have the shades, all of which I believe work. You'll notice immediately this is a really clean, well cared for example. This car's been garaged its entire life. It's been responsibly driven and exceptionally well maintained. So we kicked off the service on this car by diagnosing a really annoying alarm system issue. You'd unlock the car, and about maybe a third of the time the alarm would just start going off and go off indefinitely. Unlocking it, starting it, none of that made a difference. It would kind of just time out after a while, but that meant you were driving around with a blaring alarm siren. So it took quite a bit of time to diagnose that, actually. We tried different general modules, we tried a different interior ultrasonic sensor, we replaced the tilt sensor, and some combination of those items worked. I do believe it was the tilt sensor in addition to the siren module itself that had failed in this particular car. Customer requested that we do a general inspection around the vehicle. We've done a pretty significant amount of service work to this in the past in regards to suspension and driveline, but this time, after a few more miles, we got under there and uncovered it needed a couple more things, including front and rear brakes. So we've got fresh pads and rotors on both axles. Customer also requested some cosmetic bumper work. A couple years ago, somebody had tapped the rear end. It was in magnificent condition, but both bumpers have now been repainted and fully retrimmed. And all of this exterior trim, here's a difference with the 97. We'll see this is the Chrome Line exterior trim package, which gives us kind of the M5 textured black plastic moldings, but they've added the chrome trims around the top, and that extends onto the doors in addition to the front bumper. Kind of a really nice premium look that disappeared for, I'm not sure if that was 99 or 2000 or 2001 that was no longer available. We discovered an oil pan leak on this vehicle. This is, of course, the M52 B28, the early pre-dual Vanos engine. And the oil pan, it's a one-piece design. In the V8s, the 540, and the M5, we find an upper and a lower oil pan. Lower oil pan gasket can be replaced without subframe removal, but in the case of the 528, the front subframe does need to come down to remove that single pan and replace the gasket. So that service has been completed in addition to, of course, an oil change, and we went ahead and did his oil leveling sensor as well, which is different on the early M52s. Here's a look at the engine. Nice clean engine bay. Love to see that. It was about this clean when it came in, but we made a couple improvements. So we talked about the oil and pan gasket. We also went ahead and replaced the primary engine filter and changed the power steering fluid. This vehicle had a stored fault code for the AUC sensor, and that's the air quality control sensor that's located in the engine bay that's in use when the recirculation mode is set to automatic. You've got manual and automatic recirculation for the E39. In automatic mode, the sensor samples the ambient air and tells the computer when it's dirty, and it should be switched to full interior recirculation. On the 528, that sensor is located up here on the fan cowl. Underneath that hose, we could just see the electrical connector for it. Sensor's still available, and I do recommend replacement if you ever use that automatic recirculation mode. After that, we dug into some of the heavier work. We pulled off the exhaust, the drive shaft, and transmission. Customer complained of kind of a sloppy gearbox with really rough shifts, and I verified that. It was somewhat unpleasant to drive. So we pulled the transmission out, ended up replacing the detent pins and resealing the entire gearbox. That didn't give us the results we wanted, so the customer elected to go with a completely rebuilt ZF 5-speed. New fluid in there, of course. We had already done the shifter and shifter carrier bushings, so this now drives absolutely beautifully. If you're familiar with these 5-speeds, the problem they usually suffer from is the fifth gear lean. The detent used on that gate is just not strong enough. And the freshly rebuilt one, even stone cold, you can put it in fifth, it pops right out, feels like a new car. With the transmission off, the customer elected to have us replace the flywheel and clutch kits as well, so that's all new. We also went ahead and replaced the clutch slave cylinder and of course bled the hydraulic system for the clutch. Back to the engine bay, we had a couple vacuum leaks. So he's got a lot of new vacuum hose in this engine. We actually pulled the intake manifold, replaced the intake manifold gaskets, throttle body gaskets. You'll see this early M52 throttle body here is very different. It's actually got the ASC hardware on there as well. This predates DSC, or dynamic stability control. So this is ASC, automatic stability control. We'll also see a cruise control module over here, similar to an E36, and this is a cable throttle. This is not a drive-by-wire system. So if we were to remove the cabin box here, we'd see the cable coming through the firewall and running out here to the throttle body. We did the PCV or CCV valve. That's a real common thing on these inline sixes. This has been a Southern California car for life. It's a one-owner car, purchased new by his family. And all of that stuff was original, plastic, really brittle, small air leak that was causing some less than ideal running conditions at cold idle. With all those hoses and the valve replaced now, it runs like new. While we're under the hood, I'll point out a few of the things here that we notice on these super early E39s as opposed to the later ones. So we talked about the cruise control and the throttle body. You'll also notice the ABS module is different, seeing that this is a different ABS system. We've actually got a float level for the windshield washer system, like an E36. The HVAC snorkels are a different design as well. They've got these plastic tabs on them that lift up. That one's actually broken. You can't buy these anymore. So the thing to do for a replacement if this were to fail would be to retrofit the newer system and clip those onto newer lower cabin boxes. Next, we'll move on to some cosmetics. His front windshield seal was likely original, lasted a heck of a long time, but it was just starting to crack around here. We had some pieces missing, so we've got a nice fresh gasket in there. And you might notice something. Look at this. It's a slick top. It's the only non-sunroof slick top E39 I've ever seen that we've ever had in this shop. And it's kind of nice. You get a lot more headroom, less weight, less rattles, and less things to break. Open the driver's door, get a look on this side. This is a new door sill here as of about 12 minutes ago. The original one, the weather stripping, had just started to separate here and was peeling off. So nice, fresh, genuine BMW sill. I learned something a few weeks ago. The inline 6 E39's got different door sills compared to the V8. There's a little bit less chrome here for the straight six. You have these chrome strips, chrome BMW logo, and then the rest of it's a black plastic. On the 540, this inlay here is also metal. It's not the polished chrome. It's more of a brushed or satin finish. I hadn't realized that before. We did the front right sill as well for pretty much the same reason. Broken trailing clip, meaning it was loose. There's actually a pin right here on the sill that goes down into the body. Those are frequently broken, which means they get real loose, and then of course the rubber starts to delaminate and peel off. So our early E39s actually have a different upper door seal here. You'll see this is just kind of a smooth plastic, whereas everything from about 99 and later was kind of a textured velvet material there. So different seals all around. We'll get inside and notice that some of the switch gear is actually different. There's different turn signals. We've got a very textured switch at the end of that button as opposed to the smooth one we got for 1999 and later. And our steering wheel adjustment switch here is different as well. It works the same way, just looks a little bit different. Changes carry over to the turn signal stock, just a different design. It feels a little bit looser than the later ones. People love the E39 turn signals, myself included. This has a similar feel, but not quite as tight as the later ones. We see the non-sport 4-spoke wheel here, which is very different to drive compared to the 3-spoke sport wheel that we're all used to in our 540s or M5s or 530 Sports from 2001. It's a thinner rim, it doesn't have the bolstering, and it is quite a large steering wheel. Also notice the cruise control is pretty different here. This one threw me for a loop. It took me about 5 minutes to learn how to turn the cruise control on. As it turns out, the on-off switch is over here, like where a TPMS reset button or RDC reset button would be for an M5. So you turn the system on here, you can set it with the plus, resume with that button, lower speed, raise speed, and turn it off here. And then this button here is actually a recirculation toggle to alternate, like we talked about before, between automatic and manual recirculation. The SCM module is actually quite different here. These are individual buttons that can be added or removed, different blocks. In 99, they went to a one-piece design with multiple part numbers for different button layouts, but there's our ASC, or automatic stability control button, and the rear sunshade button. Par for the course, this being an early car, we pop that open and find a cassette deck instead of a CD player. Here's what the headliner looks like in a non-sunroof car. We'll see a few immediate differences. We don't have the HomeLink panel. We don't have a separate piece there, actually. That's all part of the primary headliner. We have different grab handles, reminding me of an E38 much more than an E39. And then our ultrasonic sensor for the security module is a completely different type of part that lives up in there. And just yesterday we got fresh seat side trims on in gray. These had cracked. We had some deep cracks in the plastic here. Of course, the rear tab was broken. Just a general amount of wear that is now gone. Rear seating compartment clean as ever. And the only difference I really noticed back here is the lack of the temperature knob for the rear climate vents. One more thing you've likely seen before is the early key. This is not the diamond key, but it is still a wireless remote key. Unlock, trunk, and lock. This 528's got 188,926 miles on it. And if you ask me to guess, just looking in and around the car, I probably would say about 40,000 miles. The cable throttle on the early car is really different. It requires a lot more pedal pressure to get the same result, which means you've kind of got to retrain your feet how to drive manual. It's a little bit opposite. The clutch is much lighter than the throttle. The brakes actually feel a bit tighter on this before DSC. I think there's less hoses out in the engine bay and around the car, meaning we just have a firmer pedal. And one more thing here to note is the center console armrest. This is a different shape, a different design. It's got a different handle and a different tray. You'll notice a few cracks in there. I have searched the world for these parts. They don't exist anymore. We can't replace those. The solution would be to facelift the armrest, get a newer piece where you can still buy those plastic inserts, and maybe that's something we'll do for them in the future. So it's stone cold right now. If we go over into fifth, no effort, no drama, springs right back in between 3 and 4. We've got the factory shift knob in here, so we still do have pretty long throws per customer request, but it's real smooth to shift, even into reverse. Back on the outside to wrap up the video, I noticed that we've got the early grills as well. We actually did a whole front end for him a couple years ago, replaced the front bumper. I think we did the lower trims, fog lights, kidney grills, and he wanted to keep all that original, which I really appreciate. So the front end of this car looks, like I said, like it's got about 40,000 miles on it. And you'll even notice it still has the original rubber seal down there at the bottom of the bumper. Fun fact, I didn't know E39s had that seal until I saw this car. This is the only one I've ever seen that still has that seal on it. They've all gotten ripped off. People drive these things over parking pylons and just crunch up all the underbody plastics and fender liners, and his are all in marvelous condition. And lastly, let's talk briefly about the paint condition. This is Arctic silver, not titanium silver. That's another difference with our super early cars here in the 97. But our friends at Elite Finish here in San Diego were able to make a massive impact on this car with paint correction and ceramic coating. With the exception of the bumpers, to the best of my knowledge, it is all original BMW paint, which is thankfully pretty hard, gives us a lot to work with in terms of polishing. But all of those swirl scratches, light clear coat level scratches and scuffs are just gone, leaving behind a deep shine, beautifully glossy, fresh looking Arctic silver paint finish. I can't wait to see his face as he sees this car. They sent some before pictures. I'll try to incorporate those here in the video of the car inside under their detailing lights, and that's when you could really see all of the haze and surface level scratching that is now a thing of the past. So that's a wrap on the 528. I know he's very excited to get it back. That'll be later this week. Thank you so much for watching. With any service inquiries, please visit our website, e39source.com, or contact me directly via email at ryan@e39source.com. Thanks for watching this one. We'll talk in the next. Take care.